Hello, Jen. Welcome to the Doing CX Right show.
Thank you, Stacy. It's great to be here.
I am so honored to have this conversation with you. And I also was fortunate enough to speak at your event and get to know you in person and even the company. It's an honor to have you. So soon my audience will know why I say that. So let's start with you. What do you do professionally, Jen?
I'm Jen Lee. I'm president and co-CEO at Intradiem. We do dynamic workforce orchestration for CX teams across front lines and back offices. I started my career actually on the front line. So I began my career as an agent handling customer service calls and have lived most of my 25-year career in that space. So it's very near and dear to me.
I love that you said that because so often people are in roles and they don't know the other side. And yet they're
Yes.
expected to lead without having really experienced it.
Right, right. And particularly those frontline customer service roles, I really think, honestly, everybody, in my opinion, should work in some kind of frontline service role for a period of their career because you just cannot grasp how complex and stressful and difficult it is until you experience it yourself.
Well, speaking of experiences, since this is the Doing CX Right show, what does doing customer experience right mean to you from where you sit and your experiences?
So to me, doing customer experience right really means recognizing that a great customer experience is created by a great employee experience. And I know we talk about the sync between EX and CX quite a bit, but I feel like perhaps lately we're starting to lose sight of that. We're looking at technology to solve problems and often forgetting the human in the middle of this or on either side of it. And so it's really about supporting the employee experience in an effective, proactive way so that they can provide the best possible experience to the customer.
So many people, many leaders are saying to me, Stacy, we are losing our top talent. We're
Yeah.
losing customers. Why do you see that happening as a trend right now? What's the core problem?
Yeah. So burnout is higher than ever, and particularly in the front line. I think it was UKG that did a study recently where 75% of frontline workers were reporting extremely elevated levels of burnout. And it jumps up to 83% when you talk about Gen Z, those that are newer to the workforce as well, right? So burnout is real and it manifests itself in poor customer experiences and in employee attrition. At the end of the day, people are tired. And I think there's a lot of roots to it. We can get into those roots as much as you'd like. I think there's external factors as well as those within an organization that should be considered. But I do believe that work, particularly frontline work, is more stressful now than it's ever been.
So you're talking about tired, stressful emotions,
Yeah.
emotions in business.
Yes.
And I love that you're bringing this out because I believe that we need to create more positive emotional connections at every interaction. And
Yes.
yet a lot of leaders are saying, emotions, they're fluffy.
Yeah.
What do you say to those skeptics?
Yeah, so two things. First, I would say at a very human level as a leader, you absolutely should care about how your employees feel about the work that they're doing. And from a business perspective, the reason you should care, if you don't care at the human level, which again, you should, but if you don't, and it's just about the business level, guess what? Emotions manifest as behaviors. So emotions come out as behaviors. And what happens is when your employee behaviors are reflecting their emotions and those emotions are negative, that's bleeding into your customer experience. That's translating to your customers. So those behaviors are actually impacting your business. So if you're not addressing the emotions that are the root of behaviors, everything we do as humans is rooted in our emotions. All of our behavior is based on how we feel. That's just how we operate as human beings, right? So if you're not addressing that, you're creating a situation in which negative emotions can manifest as behaviors that translate to poor experiences for your customers, and they will impact your business.
So before we get into detecting and those signals of those negative emotions, I want to understand from you, what's your belief why are companies so transactional? Because that is the norm. I've lived it. You probably have it in your career, and I see it still happening. So, if you and I both know that emotions matter and belong in business, then why is it so transactional?
Yeah, there's two reasons in my opinion. So the first reason is that it's really hard. It's harder to dig to the root and address emotions. It requires more work from you as a leader. It's more of a burden. I always tell new leaders when they join the organization, part of the burden of leadership is you carry the weight of the burdens of your team, right? And in order to be a great leader, you have to be willing to carry that weight. It's a lot easier not to do that. And so the second reason is that it becomes uncomfortable to dig into emotions. A lot of us were not raised to be comfortable with our emotions. I think current generations are getting a lot more learning about that, which is great. But a lot of us, are a little bit uncomfortable with the idea of emotion. And so it's a lot more comfortable for leaders to focus on metrics and KPIs and numbers, which translates to transactional. So we really have to push through that discomfort, in my opinion, as leaders and be willing to have the difficult conversations and do the difficult work to dig into the root. And we are proving at my company where our philosophy, as you saw at our event, is people first. And we stand up in front of our customers and tell our customers our people are first. They're our number one priority. We are proving that if you do that, they take care of your customers. And guess what? Your customers then do business with you, and that takes care of your shareholders. So I think it's just flipping the order of priority seems counterintuitive to those who aren't comfortable talking about emotions or don't maybe want to do the hard work around it.
I want to praise you and team for a second because I remember before I got on stage, you were talking about the fact that it's not about throwing so much tech at the solutions, yet you're a tech company.
Right, right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I really loved the fact that you really are walking the talk about that human interaction where technology enables and supports, but it could be the reverse. You could say, "Hey world, technology is the only answer," because that's what you do.
Yeah. I know it seems a little bit counterintuitive to have a CEO of a tech company saying too much tech is a bad thing, but I really truly do believe that. And that's based not just on what I see with our customers, but on my own lived experience, right? So I was on the front lines and I remember what it was like when new tools were thrown at us without proper thought or care to the impact. And we were just expected to absorb them. And it just became another thing, another stressor. And then there's the customer facing side of things where I think it seems very easy to go, oh, technology will solve this customer issue. But you forget that your customer is also a human and humans are not as predictable as machines. And so applying machine to a human problem doesn't always work out. That's why I'm a firm believer that technology has its place. I think obviously I run a tech company, so I believe technology has its place. I think technology can do incredible things for the industry. But my fear is that if we believe technology is a panacea, that it can fix everything, it can solve everything, and we forget that this is really, at the end of the day, customer service is a human interaction. If we forget that, then I believe we're going to go rapidly downhill and not achieve the goals, which are really to streamline and make the customer experience better. I think you're going to see the opposite if we go too hard on the tech side.
Well, I remember even being in the room with the clients, and I asked everyone, "How much technology do you have? Is it 3 tools, 10 tools, 15 tools?" And I remember everybody was laughing at how it was like there was like 20, 25 tools,
Oh,
and it's funny, but it's not because it's causing data silos.
yes, that's another big problem. That's such a great point is the more tools you deploy, especially I think organizations are starting to recognize this now and hopefully stepping back and being more thoughtful. But historically, we really haven't been as far as deploying tools and figuring out how we can structure and normalize data across them and have the tools talk to each other. And so then you unintentionally create silos often within one customer interaction, you've got these different siloed experiences because of different tools. And then there's still the human on the other side trying to navigate that. I sit down in call centers with our customers today, and it's very true what happened 25 years ago when I was an agent still happens. They're bouncing between 15 different screens for one customer interaction trying to solve a problem. It's incredibly stressful. And as we talked about before, when they're stressed, the customer feels it. So it all is full circle, honestly.
There's a
Yes.
lot of survey fatigue, and we're all getting smarter to get the customer feedback, detect the emotion. Well, at least the smart businesses are doing that.
Right.
And so you have a way to pick up on those signals so that leaders can actually listen, pay attention, and prevent losing those profitable customers, not just the top talent.
Right.
Talk a little bit about how does that work?
Yeah. So, what we do is we observe with machine learning all of what I would call the operational signals that surround a customer service experience. When we talk about how emotions manifest as behaviors, we're monitoring the behaviors. We don't even have to listen to the interaction, by the way. You can really observe the behaviors that manifest. And our machine learning model has been built so that it can detect when an employee is moving from one level of what we call burnout to another level of burnout, and so on and so forth, all the way up to a critical level where we can predict with minimum 80% accuracy if somebody reaches that critical level. They will attrit. It's just a matter of time before they leave the organization. So, in real time, we're monitoring these signals. We get them from all of those systems with all that disparate data. We have actually built an engine and a data engine that can pull in all of these disparate pieces of data, normalize them, and then analyze them with our machine learning model. And then we provide those predictions in real time to supervisors, to the agents themselves, so that they can what we call intervene in the compounding stress that leads to burnout.
So you're pulling from multi sources. You have a sophisticated way to actually pick up on those signals. Angry, frustrated, happy, delighted, etc. What is the technology looking for? Is it those words? Is it tone of voice? How does that work?
We don't have to hear the tone or the words. That's what's so interesting is with technology today, you can run these models based on signals that don't even require you to listen to the interaction, which is great from a privacy perspective, right? We just observe what's happening on, let's use a call center as an example, right? So in a call center, we look at data that comes from the ACD, the automated call distributor, and the WFM system, the workforce management system. And we're able to observe the agent's behavior in those systems. I'll give you a couple real world examples to bring it to life. So if an agent is incredibly stressed, let's say they've had, a number of back-to-back calls, I know from my experience as an agent, this is what still happens today is they may take a break on their own and go into an aux state, as we call it on the ACD system, right? Where they take themselves out of the queue so that they won't get another call. If we see an agent doing that over and over, that's a sign that they're super stressed, that something is wrong, especially but you can't use that signal alone. That's why it really requires machine learning and why this is where I think technology can be used for amazing things because only technology can take that signal plus another signal, which might be the actual queue stats. How long are calls lasting? Maybe we're getting extra complicated calls today. And so all of our calls are longer. And that means there's a level of complexity that's different than usual. Occupancy is the amount of time that a call center agent is spending actually speaking with a customer. If that's too high and those other behaviors are happening, very high likelihood of burnout as a result of that. So the model really observes and learns. We turn it on for a few weeks in observation mode. It ingests all these different signals that are really operational signals, doesn't have to listen to the call or anything. And it can then start to predict based on those signals and its learning when somebody is moving through those levels of burnout. So it's really simple. It's actually simpler than it sounds. You don't need it. You can enhance it with those other data points if you'd like. It certainly doesn't hurt, but you don't need those. You can get those signals from the behavior and the machine can observe the behavior and identify them.
And then it becomes the human leadership
Yes.
to be able to take that data and now do something effective with it.
That's right. That's right. And we even automate a portion of that. Now, we don't automate the human out at all because it's very important. One of the first things we tell our customers is first thing you should do is go talk to that person, right? Let's keep it really simple. Go check in on them or ping them if you're remote. But often it's so simple to intervene. So there's neuroscience behind the effects of what's called compounding stress that shows that stress really, when we feel stress, it doesn't just immediately go away. It lives in our bodies and in our nervous systems. And we feel that, right? We feel that as humans. And what happens in these high stress workplaces is you get the compounding effect. So the stress of one call plus another call or one interaction face to face and another interaction, it builds and builds. What the science shows is that the best thing you can do is insert what's called a micro break or a reset in the middle of that compounding stress, and you can disrupt the compounding factor. It's like catching a snowball before it rolls downhill and becomes gigantic, right? You can grab it, you can intervene, and sometimes that intervention is as simple as we deliver what we call wellness breaks through our platform. And so we can get those triggers and we can ping the supervisor real quick and say, we think this person needs a wellness break. They can approve it, or we can automate it if they're comfortable not even having to approve it. And we deliver a 2-minute wellness break, a 5-minute wellness break, a 10-minute get up and walk around, depending on how long you want to give. It's amazing the difference that can make.
I love that wellness meets customer experience. Like the world is combining,
Yes.
right? Those are two passions of mine. And I
Mhm.
see you and others really leaning into that. And I was going to say the future, but it's not the future. It's here now
Mhm.
and essential. And so tools that you offer are needed, not even wanted, are needed. I notice that customer sentiments are also important when to read ratings and reviews and social media banter and how
Mhm.
companies actually respond. People are watching.
Yes.
Are you noticing that the technology is doing something with that and amplifying that as much as I see? What do you see?
Yeah, I sure do. And I think that's another great use of the technology is some of that sentiment analysis. I think back when sentiment analysis first came out, I was still running contact centers back when it first entered the market. And it was helpful,
Mm.
but it was post interaction. It was often historical data. You'd get this report from the day before that said, here's some things you should address. Well, that's good. I can go coach my team on that, I guess, so that next time it's better, but that doesn't help that customer that experienced that frustrating moment. What can happen now, and our platform doesn't do this, but there are many, many great ones that do, the Crestas of the world and many others out there, honestly. Now it can detect that sentiment in real time from the customer and take action in real time by helping the agent, getting assistance for them from a supervisor, that type of thing. I would have loved that back when I was running contact centers rather than this long report I had to distill insights from and hope I could address, through coaching and training. Now you can intervene in the moment and drive a better experience. I think that's a great use of technology.
Yeah, and I'm encouraging listeners to spend time on my show listening because I have guests that are really diving into the fact that how to detect the sentiments
Mhm.
because AI is now using that to amplify and recommend what it does within the Chat GPT and Gemini channels. Are you seeing a trend around that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, it's interesting. We have a lot of our customers are focused on what I call the internal facing AI, mostly in chat, not so much in voice yet, is what we're seeing. But they're turning on these AI assistants for their employees, to your point, which can listen. And if done appropriately so that it's not bombarding your employee with information, can suggest and prompt and direct the employee for how to navigate a frustrated customer situation. And I think that's, again, a great use of technology. I would just say, again, don't bombard with it. I think you could overdo it right? So it's about understanding what do you really want to address and when do you want that intervention and tailoring that to the experience because otherwise you're hurting your employee experience if you're just bombarding them with information when they're already trying to do a tough job.
Any other trends that you are seeing, predicting, and actions that leaders need to take right now to stay competitive?
I think we talked about several of them, and I'll reiterate. One is I do think that it is realistic to believe that the future of CX will be delivered by a combination of AI and humans. That's just reality, right? So I think that corporations and employers and leaders should right now be doing what is hard work to dig in and understand where and how they should orchestrate work across AI and humans, not just, kind of throwing AI into the mix, figuring out what is the right place and how do we orchestrate that. And by that, I mean, if you're going to deploy AI to your customers, which you should and can, then you should really understand at what point is there an escalation to a human. Make sure that point is before the customer reaches a level of frustration, right? So have kind of an understanding of when your customers are reaching that, deploy it with some of that conversational analytics and the sentiment analysis so you can really know, okay, we got to get this customer to a human now and assess the different, I would say, avenues, channels, as we like to call them, where your customers are interacting with you and figure out which channels make the most sense to deploy that technology and which ones are maybe a let's wait and let's focus on this channel and, not disrupt that other one. Because if you get it wrong in one channel, it just bleeds over into the other. So I think taking a really thoughtful approach to how you deploy it is important. And then leverage technology like ours or others out there. It doesn't have to be ours for the record. There are others out there as well, but leverage technology to ingest those signals. Those signals are out there and technology exists to grab data and distill signals from it that you couldn't get before so you can take action in real time to take care of your customers.
Yeah, and I would add the power of journey mapping so that you can literally design that peak emotion. I call it this emotional altitude, and you can measure that across the journey and plan for insert human here, insert AI here,
Yeah.
from where they learn, buy, get, use, pay, and get help in a very methodical way. So that's another hour that we don't have at this moment. So rapid fire questions at the end here.
Yeah.
What is the most important key takeaway you want listeners to go do?
I think the go do, honestly, it may be too simplistic, but go sit down next to your people that are delivering, I don't care what industry you're in, you have customer facing employees, you have people working on the front line. Go live a day in their world before you make any decisions about the changes you want to make in how they work, because it really is wildly different on the front line than is sitting here as leaders observing the metrics and the KPIs, right? And then once you do that, go find the tools. Then you understand the needs. Then you know what you need to solve for. But if you don't do the first one first, I'm afraid you're going to end up where, what I talk about with customers is falling off the CX cliff, the customer experience cliff, which is technology, 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 innovation, innovation, innovation. Meanwhile, your customer experience is doing this because your employee experience and is dropping off of a cliff, right? So understand it first. It doesn't take that long. You only need a little bit of time observing.
And I would add, recognize that your team has fear, real fear of technology and AI for many reasons. And so don't ignore that. Educate them, support them, because the fear is an emotion. And we already went into why you have to pay attention.
Yes, yeah, bring them along on the journey. Don't sit in a room and design this without the people that are impacted. I mean, gosh, we wouldn't like that, right? So bring them along on the journey.
Yes. Leadership. Best leadership advice you've ever received or given.
I have a few, but I think the one I would go with is a very simple one, and that is clarity is kindness. And by that, I mean, I've always, as a people first person, I firmly believe in my heart in doing right by the people that work on our teams and that make everything happen. We wouldn't be where we are without them. There were times early in my career where I think maybe I thought I was being kind by not addressing an issue, an opportunity, some type of feedback with an employee. And I remember one of my mentors said to me, you can be kind and still be clear and provide clarity. And in fact, it is much better for people to understand when they're going wrong. And it's your job as a leader to intervene and help them understand when they're going wrong than for you to sit back and let them believe that they're succeeding when they're not, right? And that's hard. It means having hard conversations. It means being really candid. I call it compassionate candor, in that, you underpin it with empathy and kindness and a true desire to see the other person succeed. That's really key. You need to believe that what you're doing is going to help them succeed. And then you need to give direct feedback. So I think you can be direct and compassionate at the same time.
Absolutely. Both and, not either or.
Exactly.
And my last question, my favorite one, I've asked over 200 people. If you could go back in time and talk to your younger 20-year-old self based on what you know now that you didn't know then, what would you say to the younger Jen?
Oh gosh, 20-year-old Jen was lost. So I would say hang in there, keep doing what you do, which is learning. I think we all have superpowers, and one of mine is I love to learn, and so I'm always learning and focused on learning. And so I think I would encourage myself to keep learning, and that learning will pay off. Keep that hunger, that curiosity, that desire to learn, and it will come together and make sense for you, because 20 years ago, I don't know that I thought I had a path. I certainly didn't think I had a path to where I am today.
Love that. So, thank you so much for being here today. I am grateful for our reconnection. And I know the audience will want to connect with you. And so, it'll be in the show notes, the best way to learn more about your company and you. So, thank
Great.
you again very much for being here.
Thank you, Stacy. I really enjoyed it, and it's great to reconnect with you after the event as well. So thank
Thank
you.
you.